Hey everyone, David from Sunday Sounds here. In today's video I want to talk to you about how you can play Christmas music as a worship keys player. You have to have some different sounds in your toolkit when you go to play Christmas music than you might need for most modern worship music. And today we're going to specifically talk about bell sounds, because when it comes to Christmas music you want it to have sort of a familiar, feel-good vibe. And if you don't have these bell sounds dialed in and ready to go, then it can be hard to have that sort of nostalgic feel. But there's so many different types of bell sounds, so I wanted to give you a few to identify that you can search for in your software or on your hardware keyboard as you begin to prepare your Christmas patches. So I've got several bell sounds dialed up here within MainStage, and I'm going to highlight them one at a time and talk a little bit about each of them and how you might be able to dial them in for yourself. First off is sort of this church bells or tubular bells kind of sound, and I'll play it for you so you can hear what it sounds like. So there it is, sort of in the high range, and then in the lower range it sounds like this. So the thing about these church bells, these tubular bells, is they have a lot of dissonance, a lot of subharmonics and overtones. So when you're using sounds like this, it definitely feels like Christmas time, but if you're not careful about where you place them on the keyboard, then it can clash with other instruments in your band or with other layers that you have as part of a patch. So just make sure that you use some caution and you pay attention to where those harmonics are sitting, and these can definitely go a long way to add a Christmas vibe to your presets. Next, I want to talk about Glockenspiel. Now this is sort of a similarly traditional sort of Christmas bell sound, but unlike tubular bells, it has a very clean, pristine tone. It sounds like this. And as we go down the keyboard, so there's still some of those overtones that make bell sounds so familiar, but they're much more controlled and pure than you'd find with church bells or tubular bells. One thing I really love to do if I want to use tubular bells, but I don't want them to be too dissonant, is actually layer these two types of sounds together. And that sounds like this. You sort of get the purity from the Glockenspiel and that church bell sound that's so familiar. When you blend the two together, it can be really nice. If the tubular bell is too dissonant, you can always use some subtractive EQ to try and get some of that low frequency content under control. Okay, so we've talked about a couple real traditional bell sounds. Now let's talk about synth bell sounds. Here's a couple examples for you. And example 2. So if you're using MainStage or Ableton or Omnisphere, you can search for synth bells in the preset browser and find tons of options. And so if you're looking for something quick, you can probably find a preset or two that will fit the bill just by going through the stock presets. But there's all sorts of different things that you can pay attention to that can set different synth bell sounds apart. There's some that have more of an 80s vibe, like this one. And this sounds a lot like old Mannheim steamroller songs, and it can be a really cool texture to layer on top of a worship piano or a synth lead or synth pad. Some other synth bells will have more of a detuning or a warbling effect, which is sort of mimicking what traditional real bell samples are going to have in them, like this one. You need to decide if that pitch modulation, if that warble, if there's enough room in your mix for that to stand out without being a distraction or getting in the way of what the rest of your band is doing. And as true with real bell sounds, I also love to layer synth bell sounds. Here's a little bit of both of these synth bells layered together. All right, one more type of bell sound, and this is a really traditional, kind of fun bell sound that might sound goofy on its own, but if you're doing some upbeat, electronic kind of worship music, Christmas band covers, then this sort of sound could be a really cool way for you to sort of add a Christmas feel to a sound. This is actually not a bell sound, it's a xylophone. But it fills sort of the same amount of space, and that's why I wanted to talk about it in this video. So on its own, it's really quick and muted. But if you layer it in with some synth bells or even with some real bells, I'll bring in a little bit of everything. It can add this sort of immediate attack that can be really cool. I'll adjust the levels a little bit here, mix everything in so it's nice and balanced. So those are a few different types of bell sounds that you can search for in MainStage, Ableton, or whatever you're using for your worship keys setup. If you're a MainStage user and you'd like something that's done for you, you can have access to all of the bell sounds I used in today's video as part of our MainStage Christmas Patches sound library. I'll put a link to that sound library in the description of this video if you'd like to check it out. If this video was helpful for you, be sure to like it, leave a comment to let us know, and share it with a friend that plays worship keys too. Thanks for supporting us here at Sunday Sounds, and have a Merry Christmas.